So please just put your hand up, say something, join in the conversation, because some people just come to things and they don't really know what they want from it, or they don't really know what they want to achieve. And it's like, if you have a kind of clear idea of what it is that you want to achieve, then, you know, we can then, you know, the questions and the discussion can revolve around that. So does anybody want to sort of share what is it they want to achieve from today, or even learn from today?
Well, I might. Oh, I see some comments going in the chat, so we keep an eye on those Faradays. But I can't.
How do I get to the chat if I'm sharing my screen?
So I'm happy to read them out for you, Faraday.
Okay, perfect.
So
yeah,
got practical strategies to manage neurodivergence.
Yeah.
Learn how to help those with neurodiversity.
Yeah.
And
any other comments at all? Yeah, I'd say just Faraday. I'd be so interested to know more about the subject, about sort of perhaps the main types of, or more common types, if you like, of neurodiversity. And I mean, I would hope we're more accepting of it.
Yeah, there is. I mean, there is obviously the common ones that I work with is ADHD, autism, dyslexia, and dyspraxia. I don't work with a lot of individuals with dyscalculia because I'm not a mathsy person, and I personally struggle sometimes to know, and I don't get a lot of them come through either. And I think I personally feel it's a very, very underrepresented support. And I only know that because I have a student who has dyscalculia at the moment, but she's doing counselling. So it's not really something that, you know, she struggles with in her actual degree, but she has to do a particular statistics thing and there's no support for her. So dyslexia is the most common one rather than an ADHD. And obviously we all know now that ADHD is becoming incredibly popular. But I also work with people who have ADHD, dyslexia, ADHD, autism, dyslexia, autism. So there's a commonality that there's a lot of, like, they've got double whammies, should we say, you know. So that kind of like is quite difficult for them and quite impacting, because it's being able to separate which one's doing what. So it's like with autism, you've got the structure and the routine, and then you've got ADHD, that's the chaos. So there's a conflict and a resistance between the two all the time that happens with them, and they struggle with that, and it becomes really difficult, and it's very stressful. But we're going to get on to that, right? Because what I really want to focus on in this is I want to really sort of give you an idea of what it feels like for lots of people who are neurodivergent, how they can be supported, why the environment matters, and what stress has to do with it, and background history of education and things, because these are key factors as to whether or not the individual that's in the workplace is going to be productive and able to do their job in the way that they need to do their job and the way that they want to do their job. Does that all make sense?
Yes. Faraday, we've just got some more questions that have come through. If it's not too much to throw at you, would you be able to read them out? Sure.
Yeah, so I've got challenging misconceptions about those who are neurodiverse, how to help students with ADHD and procrastination, what methods have you found to be most effective for neurodivergent through suppressed trauma, e.g. I'm autistic, I have used piano playing and self-compassion, how to alter my approach to engage with neurodivergent team members. Yeah, I can go through all of that. At the end, I can ask questions. Also, I'm happy for people to send me questions if they need to on email, and I can send them things too. So, you know, if we don't get time to cover everything, my details will be on the last slide. And I'm very happy for people to contact me if they want to and they have any questions or want anything. All right. Okay. So I have a huge wealth of resources, so it's kind of like a huge wealth of resources, right? Okay, so let's go with this then. Right, okay, so if we just go with this, so let's play from the start. Right, okay, I want you to remember this particular saying: when a flower doesn't bloom, you fix the environment in which it grows, not the flower. Okay, because for many people, what happens is we try to fix the person and fix the ADHD and fix the dyslexia and fix the autism, when actually the environment is the key factor, not the person. The person within the environment is going to be stunted. They're not going to be able to grow. They're not going to be able to flower. They're not going to be able to bloom. So I want you to remember this, this particular thing. So if you have staff who are neurodivergent, I want you to really remember this particular saying, right? Now, why does our environment matter? Now, our environment matters. It's a key factor in our growth, in the way that we function, in our sustainability in life, in our safety, our survival, right? And workplaces are environments. Now, individuals within environments come with them a whole load of stuff from previous environments, which are going to impact on the environment within which they are in. And safety, psychological safety, which we will discuss, is one of the key factors of environments. Somebody feeling safe, being able to be themselves and be who they are. And most neurodivergent individuals, so let's say, so I've been working in this job for 15 years, so I probably met hundreds and hundreds of people who are neurodivergent, and 99% of them do not feel safe in their environments, which is a very big number. I had one individual, I've had two individuals in the time that I've worked. They were two students. They were both dyslexic. One had known about his dyslexia since he was about 5 or 7 years old, very young. So had always been given the support by his parents. And he floated around life, and his dyslexia really didn't bother him. If he didn't pass something, it didn't freak him out. It didn't send him on some kind of, it didn't affect him. And the other one, her dyslexia didn't affect her. She wasn't stressed. She was a rugby player, right? So that's two people out of all the people that I've worked with, and they always stand out because of the way that their dyslexia had been supported, right? So environment's a key factor. So if you think about in schools, in education, in higher education, in previous workplaces, I've worked with lots of people who go into new jobs who've been bullied in previous jobs, and so they take with them into their next job the trauma of all of that. So what you're dealing with is your environment is a key factor in actually your staff being productive and growing. And we are going to talk about the stress of environments as well. Okay, right. So I want to have a little bit of a group discussion with this about what the common challenges are that you come across. And I'm quite happy for people to speak about them rather than just put them in the chat. So I want you to share common challenges that maybe you come across, common challenges with your staff or your peers, or even your own common challenges that you come across, because what there normally is there's normally a thread in terms of what actually happens. There's normally a thread of, there's a consistency of certain things that I see all the time, right? So with individuals, and it's very much the same. So I do find myself in a lot of my coaching repeating things consistently all the time, because what I have is I see the same issues coming up over and over again. So does anybody want to sort of say what's the common challenges that they come across in their workspace or their workplace?
For someone has noted down procrastination, motivation, lots of unfinished projects. Kelly, you have your hand up?
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Mike. Yeah, I'll second that. Sort of having really amazing ideas, but the follow through is tricky.
Is that the follow through for yourself, or the follow through with staff as well, or is it just yourself?
Myself, maybe staff as well, but mainly myself.
Okay. So does anybody have anything that they see within their staff that they see quite common? Bullying, very common for autistic people. Yes, absolutely. It is very common. Lots of bullying, lots of trauma, communication, procrastination. These are all the common issues, right? Procrastination, as soon as it's been brought up, is not about the task in and of itself, which is what everybody thinks that it is. It's not actually about the task in and of itself. It's actually about how you feel about the task. So it's not the task, because it's not that you can't do the task, it's about how you feel. So it's the feeling that's attached to that task, or the feeling of, if I do this task, I'm going to fail. If I do this task, I'm going to get it wrong. That's what procrastination is about. So if you go into your feeling and you decide, okay, so what is it I'm feeling here? Then you would be able to consider, okay, I'm feeling fear that I'm afraid that I'm going to fail, or I'm afraid that it's not going to be good enough. then you can start dealing with it. Procrastination is not about the task in itself. It's a common misconception that it's not about the task. Does that make sense for people?
Yes, someone's also mentioned organisation, particularly with files and projects.
Yeah. Organisation, yeah, very, very common. That's something, if you're very stressed and you live in chaos, your organisation is going to be off, right? So what I'm going to do is I am going to talk about how to kind of deal with stress, right? Because stress is a really big factor for anybody, right? Stress is a huge factor for anybody, but it's an even bigger factor for individuals who are neurodivergent. It's a huge factor for them because when they're young, their environments, especially if it's undiagnosed. Can I just ask how many people here have a diagnosis of being neurodivergent in some form? How many people have a diagnosis? Can we have just hands up or something just to see how many people I've got here?
Well, you can use the thumb to react.
Yeah. Okay. We've got a few. Is there a few of you?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Right. Okay.
I think there's a few people.
Yeah. Okay. Right. So, and I'm assuming that most of you are late diagnoses. I'm assuming that most of you are late diagnoses. Yeah. Yeah. That's what I'm assuming. Okay. I can't see my chat box. Oh, there it is. Right. Okay. Yeah. 88. Yep. Self-diagnosed. Yeah. So I'm assuming. So stick it in the chat if you're late diagnosed, right? Because that makes a massive difference. Okay. When you have a late diagnosis, one of the big common factors is what you have is you have a whole backlog of and trails of survival patterns, behaviors, and beliefs that you hold about yourself and your environment and the world. And for most people, it's not safe. You're not safe, right? It's not safe to be you because you were told off when you were a kid. So somebody with ADHD, if they're in a classroom and their environment hasn't been given to them. So dyslexia it's really common as well for them. So if you've got individuals who are neurodivergent, but their environment at school or at home does not provide them with the things that they require in order to thrive. So if you think Maslow's hierarchy, they are going to become traumatized by that environment and they're going to become stressed out by that environment. So then as they move through school, then they go into higher education and they will push it away and avoid, right? So they won't allow themselves to be, so they'll mask, they'll do whatever it is they have to. And then eventually what happens, it's like a volcano, eventually everything comes out. It doesn't just stay down, right? And then they get into the workplaces and they're getting triggered by their external environment, right? And it's bringing up old stuff from their past. Does that make sense to everybody? Yes? Okay. So, let me just share. Right. Okay. So emotional trauma, safety, stress, these are the things they all have an impact on you as an individual right now. So they have a really big impact on you as an individual right now. And what it's going to do, so when you're in your workspace, you are going to feel the impact of your past experiences because your mind doesn't differentiate between the now and the past. So it's going to believe that something bad is about to happen to you because you're feeling that stress, and it's just a reminder of your past experiences. And if you're undiagnosed, you are going to come with a lot of stressful experiences into your environment, right? A lot of stressful experiences into your environment. And I have not met a single individual, apart from those two that I said, who hasn't had that, weren't supported when they were young. Because it's very common for them to also come from families where there's an undiagnosed parent, or there may be trauma, abuse, whatever it is that's been going on. But educationally, there's also that factor. So if you are not supported educationally in your schooling, it's going to impact on you when you get to university and in your workplace. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay. Right. So neurodivergent individuals, and you can please put in the chat if you agree with this, okay? Neurodivergent individuals will try to fit into the neurotypical thinking box. They will try to keep up and do tasks in a neurotypical way to feel safe, to fit in and belong, right? So I want you to think of square peg fitting into a round hole. It will cause stress and it will cause resistance, right? So stick in the chat or speak up. Is that your experience of what it is? Do you feel like you have to fit in?
Looks to me like a lot of people agree with
you. And tell me, how is that working out for you? Is it working out well, or is it not? I would imagine it's probably not working out very well at all. No. Okay, right. If I can give you, all of you, one piece of advice, stop doing that. Stop trying to fit in to a round hole when you are a square peg. All right? Stop, because you are going to get exhausted. You have to work with your neurodivergence, but what you're doing by trying to fit into this like square peg round hole thing, you are working against it. And what you're doing is you're denying it, and you're saying to yourself, this part of me doesn't exist. Right? And yes, it is really difficult to change habits of a lifetime, but they are doable, right? Absolutely 100% they are doable, but they take consistency, and they take doing something every single day and a recognition of what's triggering you in your environment. And this is why your environment is a key factor. And this is why I talk so much about environment. Okay. So, and it is doable. And the reason I know it's doable is because when you shift into survival mode, you shift into a pattern of behavior in order to keep yourself safe and in order to keep yourself from harm. So it's a protection mode. I spent my life doing that from the age of 4 years old onwards. I've had a lot of trauma, and my first trauma, I was hit by a car when I was 4 years old, and I went under the wheels of the car and I froze, and my whole system became about survival. And then I had lots of traumas on top of that. So my experiences have been lots of, like yours, exhausting patterns of behavior, beliefs. And I started a journey 11 years ago to start breaking all of that, because I couldn't live with it anymore. Right. So I understand it, but I also know that it is doable. Right. But it's every single day you have to work on it. Every single day. It's just a small little step. Okay. And I promise you, you can. Absolutely promise you that you can. Okay. Right. So let's go back to. Okay, so we're just talking about stress and what stress got to do with it. How many of you are stressed? I imagine loads of you are stressed. Yes, lots and lots of you are stressed. Yeah. I mean, it's like yeah, stressed, lots and lots of stressed. Okay, right. Stress is a really interesting thing. It's I love exploring stress and talking about stress, and because stress has a lot to do with your productivity and your capabilities and your ability within the workplace. And we all know that stress is one of the biggest things that people go off sick for, and it's actually causes a lot of disease in your body. It can cause strokes, it can cause heart attacks, it can cause all sorts of stuff. And what it causes as well is it causes huge amounts of nervous system dysregulation, right? And your nervous system and your brain are your predictors of how safe you feel in the world. And if you are very, very dysregulated, then you are not going to feel safe in your environment, and you're certainly not going to feel safe in your workplace. How many of you get home and feel relieved that you're home after you've been at work for a day? How many of you feel relieved when you get home? Stick it in the chat. Or how many of you go home to a stressful home? Always. I've got an always there. Any more? Yeah, sometimes. Need to lie down in the dark room. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Very common. How many of you have neurodivergent children or husband or partner as well? Very common. Yes. Yes. Okay. Right. I will talk about that. Okay, but I do have some things that I can give you that will be about helping you and your children within your home. So dysregulation is a key thing. Okay, so if you want to help yourself and your world and your environment, co-regulation with yourself and your children and your partner. Right, co-regulation. That's the biggest thing that you can do. Not dysregulation, co-regulation. Right, at home. And then what you're doing is you're regulating, but I can give you things for that. So I want you to tell me the last time that you were stressed, and I want you to tell me how it made you feel, and I want you to tell me what happened, right? So was there a disaster? Was there a catastrophe? What happened? I want you to tell me what happened in terms of, were you productive? Were you unproductive? What was going on emotionally, mentally, with your executive function, with your body? What was going on the last time that you were stressed? Stick it in the chat. Anybody at all want to tell me? Okay, this morning getting it, yep, very stressful. Yep. Shut down, yep, okay. Yep. Okay. Overwhelmed, out of control, yep. Shut down, I froze. Executive function completely switched off, became non-verbal. Okay. Has anybody heard of the window of tolerance? Anybody heard of the window of tolerance? No? Okay. I wasn't going to mention it, but I'm going to do is I'm going to access it for you, because I think it's something I would like to show you. Right. Okay. We have a window of tolerance, and we have this window that we sit in where we're calm, we're peaceful, and we function really, really well. And then we have these two other states, which is our hyperarousal, which is our fight or flight, and our hypo, which is where we shut down and where we freeze. And that's when the body just can't take any too much. It's got too much going on. So where we've got someone that's just, I had a shutdown, I froze, and my executive function completely switched off. I became non-verbal, irritable and emotionally low, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to show you, so just bear with me because I'm just going to access it, and I'm just going to show you what the window of tolerance is for people who don't know what it is, right? And we all have this window of tolerance, and we have a window of tolerance for various things, right? So you have a window of tolerance for your kids, for your job, for your partner, for the postman, for your friends. You all have a window of tolerance for different things, right? And if I show you, okay, so can you all see that? Yes, right? So this is your window of tolerance, right? So what we have is we have this lovely state here, right, where you're in your comfort zone and you're feeling safe, you're feeling calm, everything's amazing, right? And you're doing your job really well, and it's just wonderful, right? There is your window of tolerance, right? But then we have this kind of dysregulation, and lots of people sit just outside most of the time, outside of their window of tolerance. So what they're doing is they're sort of sat, so here we have is your window of tolerance, but they're just sort of sat just there, just slightly out of the window of tolerance, right? And then what happens is what you've got a situation whereby it takes just one little thing for you to trip into being hyper aroused or hypo aroused, right? So if all day you are in this state of dysregulation or hyperarousal, it's very highly likely that you are going to, when you get home, you are going to shut down. And that's your body's way of telling you, I can't do this anymore. This is too much, right? Your body's shutting down. It's freezing. So we have fight, flight, freeze, right? So you're freezing, you're shut down. Your hyperarousal is when you're in your sympathetic and you're fleeing or you're fighting, right? And we needed all of this, obviously. We all know that this is caveman stuff, and we needed all of this when we used to go out and hunt, and we used to go out and hunt and gather and get things, and saber-toothed tigers and all of those things. But what's happened now is that our fight or flight, we're not designed to live in this heightened state of fight or flight, which is what a lot of people are doing in workspaces. And emails now become saber-toothed tigers, right? Tasks become saber-toothed tigers. Our peers become the saber-toothed tiger. Our managers become saber-toothed tigers. Our environment becomes unsafe, and because we're too hyper-aroused or dysregulated, right? And we want to be in our window of tolerance, and you have to build your window of tolerance, and it takes small steps every single day, right? So you can see that the things that shift you out, stress, trauma triggers, poor sleep, illness, grief, loss, rejection, and the things that expand it are grounding techniques, gratitude, breathing exercises, positive self-talk, and joyful activities. Okay. So you all have a window of tolerance. We all have it. Okay. because we all have a nervous system, right? So if you want to increase your productivity, you want to decrease your stress. That's a given. It's a given across any human being. If you want to increase productivity, you have to decrease the stress, right? So you have to move out of your fight or flight. So your fight or flight response, so when you're in fight or flight, your reptilian brain kicks in, right? So it kicks in, and what it does is it says, I'm in danger, I need to get away, I need to do this. So either you get loads of blood pumped to your legs, right, so you can run, or you get loads of blood pumped to the top of your body so you can fight. But if you're sat on a Zoom call and sat in your office and you're feeding your fight or flight, what are you going to do? You can't go anywhere, can you? Right? So you're storing all that energy or you're pushing it away. So what you're doing is you're constantly staying in that hypervigilant kind of system, right? And then you've got your freeze and fawn, right? So you've got your parasympathetic, which regulates nervous system, but what you've also got is this thing called the vagus nerve, which is part of the parasympathetic, which will cause shutdown, your freeze, and you'll go into kind of your dorsal vagal and your freeze, but you want to be in your ventral vagal, which is where you are safety and connection and feeling good. That's kind of like within your window of tolerance, right? Okay. So I want you to think about your brain and your nervous system, and the way that you function within your environment is that it's designed to predict and protect and to support your survival above all, right? Above all. So this is when things like, okay, so if you fear rejection, you might be a massive people pleaser or do loads of things for people, right? If you're afraid that you're going to get things wrong or what you're doing is not good enough, you're going to work harder than everybody else to try to prove your value and your worth, which is absolutely exhausting, right? And also, we're not designed to continually live in heightened states of stress. Stress equals survival, which equals less productivity. So when you get your stress in check, life becomes easier. Life happens through you, not to you. So when you're less stressed, life has ease and it has flow. Does that make sense? Yeah? So at its simplest, living is survival. Living in survival means your nervous system does not believe it's safe. So you do not believe you're safe, right? And you can't distinguish now between safety and threat, right? So let me just stop the share a second, right? So what you've got is your emails, right, become threatening, okay? Who gets stressed out by their emails? Stick it in the chat. Who gets stressed out about their emails and their work tasks? What happens? Yeah. Okay. Who avoids their emails? Yeah. Who has particular members of staff that they might work with that make them feel like they're not good enough? Yes. Yeah. Right. Okay. This is your past triggering your present moment, and your brain goes, so this is, so in very basic terms, this is what your brain does. And this is why it's for individuals who are neurodivergent, it can be a lot worse, right? So what happens is an email comes in, you feel a reaction to that email, you go, right? Your brain goes, this is dangerous, right? We can't have this. So what it does is it searches the database. Oh, right. Okay. Yeah, that's what it is. This is how I need to react. And before you know it, you've got 100 emails in your inbox for one particular person that you don't want to respond to. And that's how it works. That's at its very basic level, right? So what's happening is, this is why the environment is so key, because your environment triggers you to react and behave in a particular way. Right? And when you're neurodivergent, it keeps you very restricted and stuck because your environment is probably not equipped or set up in the way that it needs to be for you. Okay, so how many people feel that their environment isn't healthy for them, isn't the way that it needs to be? How many people find their environment stressful? Stick it in the chat. Okay, so yeah, I work from home. Yeah. So who here works from home because they find being in the office really stressful? Okay, yeah. Yeah. Okay. Anybody else? We have 21 people, so okay. Yeah. Very distracting. Okay. 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 Right. Okay. So stress is the thing. My job is in, I find the office and hard to get work done. Yep. Yeah. It's a very common thing that people find office space is very overwhelming. Who here has to hot desk? Who hot desks here? Okay. Who likes hot desking? If you say yes, you'll be the only person I've ever met that likes hot desking. It's like, oh, I love hot desking. Said no one ever. Not at all. Don't mind it, strangely. Okay, you don't mind it. Okay, there's one person hating hot desking. Right. Hot desking and for individuals who are neurodivergent is really hard, right? Because what they have is it's about routine, knowing what's going to happen, right? If you're very stressed and traumatized, you need to know what's going to happen, right? You need to know you've got somewhere to sit so you feel safe. So people put their safety on something external to them, and that might be, okay, I need to have a desk, or I need to have a certain chair, or I need to do certain things, right? So I was working with a client yesterday who said, as long as I have my checklist, I feel safe. And so I said to her, okay, so if I take away your checklist, you're no longer safe. And she went, oh, well, no. And I said, exactly, right? So our sense of safety is based on what we place it upon, but also what we're experiencing in our environment, right? Does that all make sense? So does anybody have any questions for me before we go on to this thing? Okay, trick is that's amazing. You have a manager who's very safe. That's exactly what we need, is that safety from in your environment and from other people. Other people make us feel safe, right? If you have a manager or you have a coworker who is constantly criticizing you or constantly berating you for something, that's not safety, right? But if you feel as if you're constantly criticized, or you feel as if you're always threatened, that is you also not safe. You're dysregulated, because that's how the world works. So I walk around a lot of the time feeling like I'm going to be attacked, because I've been attacked so many times in my life. And when I was a child and in my teenage years and in my adult years, and some of those attacks have been very unpleasant. So I walk around with I feel it, I sense it. I'm like, okay, I feel like I'm going to be attacked. So when I walk past people, I move, right? Okay. That's kind of like survival patterns of behavior that we do, right? Okay. Okay. Now I just want we're going to do a bit of a small group sort of discussion. We're going to, Shwani's going to send you off into small groups, right? And we're going to look at, what inclusivity means, right? So what I want you to do is, because we all have an idea of what it means and how we're supposed to do it, because it's textbook, or the textbook says this, right? Or this is what the legislation says, and this is what we have to do, right? But what I want you to go away and think about is, I want you to think about, in small groups, I want you to think about what goes on in your workspace, what you think is being done well and what you think is not being done well, right? And what you think could be changed, right? So go off in small groups. So what's the time? So like 10 minutes sort of discussion, and just write down some notes, ask somebody, and somebody choose to deliver, because it would be, it'd be nice to have a few more of you with your cameras on. And it's kind of like, I want you to think about these kind of questions as well, right? Is there open and honesty in your, without fear of judgment? Do you value communication and different thinking styles, or do you feel valued, right? Do you feel valued as an individual? Is the space that you work in, is it trauma informed? Is it highly stressful? Or is it calm and peaceful, right? Is your office open planned, right? Do you have quiet spaces? I want you to think about some of the environmental factors within there, or what you feel could be changed, or or what's being done really, really well. So if you could just stick everybody into groups and then come back and feedback.
Oh, hello.
Okay. Oh, look, faces. Yes, please give me some faces. It's lovely to see faces.
Will you hear me?
I'm being recorded and I make all sorts of weird expressions. So,
Oh, yeah.
So
Camera's
some
started
faces.
working again.
Okay.
Turn the mic off.
And on.
Who's kind of feeding back? Who decided that they wanted to feed back on their group? Let's start with the first group. So Shawnee, do you know who was in which group? Okay.
So I think that was Claire, Camilla, Penny, and Holly.
Okay, who's feeding back then of that group? Who's going to feed back? Who's feeding back?
I guess
Anybody?
I will. Okay, so very much the conversation was about for the team that I was talking to, I'm assuming within Live Well Southwest.
Yeah.
Very, very positive, open atmosphere, very supportive, feel encouraged to be able to ask for what they need if they need extra support or doing things differently. They've had training around being trauma informed, and I think that's something that we could do with more of at the university. And they mentioned about a trauma informed network that does training, so I'm going to look into that. Generally speaking, was offices were, small offices, so that wasn't too bad. At the university, we've got a mixture. I'm actually in an office on my own at the moment, but a couple of months ago, there were 20 people in the office and it was hell.
Yes.
This building in the business school, we do now have some quiet spaces for students. So I think this building has been designed with some trauma-informed things in place, which is really good.
Yeah.
So that's kind of us in a nutshell.
Okay. Well, that's pretty good. That is pretty good. Do you think there's anything that they can improve upon? Because if you think about, there's sort of other things that like inclusivity as well includes. So do you think there's anything that the university can improve on? I can think of several things that the university could improve on. Several things.
So there are lots of things that can be done differently. Work in progress, I think.
Yeah, like most things, work in progress. Okay, next group, feedback.
Next group is Kelly, Lisa, Brett, and Laura.
So I think kind of what came out of our conversation was that we personally try to encourage openness and honesty and trauma informed and all that sort of stuff. But although organisations often say that they adhere to that, when you're kind of trying to be open and honest and stuff, doesn't always necessarily get received very well. And same with kind of adapting to different communication and thinking styles. Can be resistance from colleagues or managers or whatever, which makes things quite difficult. I think on the whole, we found that our workplaces are fairly calm and peaceful, but that's partly because we work from home, a lot of us. Again, the open plan offices varies. So open plan offices is difficult for some people, but I was just saying, as we were leaving, we are in a very in an old building which was a series of nursing quarters. So it's small rooms, which personally I like sometimes, but sometimes I don't, because it almost feels like you can shut yourself away, and it's very oppressive and too quiet sometimes. So it's difficult to say what's kind of the best and what's not.
Yeah, notice when you're in a situation where you might be in a room and it feels very enclosed and it feels very shut down, like you feel quite enclosed and trapped. Notice what's going on with your stress, your body, your nervous system. Because if you're in a hyper aroused state, your whole premise is I have to get out, I have to flee. So if you're in a confined space, you're not going to be able to get out. Yeah. So notice how you're feeling. Right. So, and this is a key factor whenever anything happens, right? So if you get an email that comes in and it triggers you, okay, you notice what happens in your body with that trigger and you sit with it, and you have to sit with that feeling, because I don't want to feel that, that's too uncomfortable. And as children, when we're told, don't cry, don't do this at school, you can't do that, don't cry, you're not allowed to cry, boys don't cry, no, little girls, you can't do that, right? You're taught to say that this uncomfortable feeling that I have, I can't feel. So when you feel it, it's actually your nervous system, your brain, it goes, nope, I don't want to feel this. I need to push it away. It's dangerous. And you have to feel it, right? You have to allow it to run through you and process it. So when you have an email that comes in, because emails are like massive saber-toothed tigers to people, you get the email come in, you feel the reaction, you sit with the reaction, and you say to yourself, okay, what am I feeling right now? So instead you go into fight mode and respond to the email. Who does this? And then responds to their email in fight mode. Right. Okay. So instead of doing that, you would sit with it and you say, okay, so what am I feeling right now? What's this triggered? What am I afraid of? That's what it is, because your stress from being, so it's like people with who are neurodivergent, they think differently, but they're storing a lot of emotions and stress from their past, which is actually impacting them right now in their present. That's kind of how it works. You can't get away from it, right? And you can't run away from yourself. So you're constantly observing your state, not the external world. But when we're in heightened states of stress and survival, we're looking to the external world constantly for the danger. Oh, it must be my emails. That's the problem. It must be my colleague. That's the problem. It must be this. That's the problem. Can you see? Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay. Next group.
The next group is Jamie, Falma, Sophie, and Louise.
We didn't actually decide on a spokesperson, so I'm going to try and remember, because none of us made notes.
Okay.
But I think we were talking about our organisation. Most people work from home, so sometimes that's a good thing. For other people, it isn't. Obviously, we do have choice, which we said it is great for people to have that choice, whether they want to come into the office or whether they feel safer working at home. We also went through like adapting our language and behavior around people, so like being a bit more sensitive with like maybe jokes that we're telling and stuff like that. And also we looked at the idea of if we don't know that somebody is experiencing issues, then we can't help them, but we don't want to force them into having to tell us. So maybe like being more general about, if you want to discuss any neurodivergent issues with us, you can, but without making them feel pressured to do so, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was mainly what we went through.
Yes.
My group.
Obviously, disclosure is a huge thing, right? Lots of people don't disclose. And why do you think people don't disclose? What do you think is the primary reason that people don't disclose?
Being treated differently, potentially.
Yeah. What else do you think it is? Yeah, that's one of them.
Fear.
Fear. Yeah. What do you think they're afraid of?
Discrimination.
Yeah. Being
embarrassed.
sacked. Yeah, being sacked. One of them, predominant thing, is failure and being sacked. That's one thing I hear a lot of, that they're going to get the sack because of it. So a lot of people don't disclose. I'm a real advocate for disclosure. I think that disclosure is a really big thing, but I also know that organizations don't make it easy to disclose, right? So because every single environment that you're in, I can guarantee to you, is not 100% inclusive. Guarantee it. Because you don't walk into that environment as somebody who's neurodivergent. So if 1 in 5 people are dyslexic, why are 1 in 5 computers, why do they not have the software already on them when you walk into an environment? Why is it that you have to apply for access to work funding? Why is it that you have to go and ask for your adjustments? Why are they just not freely given? Why is it that you have to go through an occupational health report if the environment is really inclusive? That's not making your environment inclusive. That's making you jump through hoops to get the inclusivity that you require. Inclusivity starts at foundation and runs all the way through. So it starts at application point, but we will talk about that. Okay, do we have anything else? So people are very, very fearful. And when we keep that in mind, but you're not going to be able to deal with that if it's a fear from the past. I work with a lot of people who have had experienced some horrendous bullying, And it's been as soon as they've had a diagnosis and as soon as they've told them, suddenly people have changed the way that they've treated them. That's environmental. That's people within an environment. So, and there is a bit of a culture for it. What's computer software will help? It would depend what software, what you would need it for, because there's lots of different ones. Penny, what would you need it for? Tell me. I'm just answering a question that's come up. What would you need the software for?
I don't know. It's just that you mentioned it, and I wondered, you know, because I'm not aware of any software that can help. So any suggestions?
Okay, right. So if I chuck a few things at you, okay. So there's things like there's Grammarly, there's Global Tasks, there's Read Write, there's something called Drag and Dictate. So basically you speak. So lots of people have, so your executive function, right? So your processing, people who are neurodivergent generally have slower processing, right? They process information more slowly, okay? So it takes them longer to do tasks, but they're constantly trying to do the tasks at the same rate as everybody else. So this is where there's kind of like this rush, this panic, I've got to get this done, I've got to get this done, right? So your processing speed is slower, and sometimes people find it really difficult to transfer the information from here out and onto paper, but they can verbally speak it. So there's Drag and Dictate, which is really quite good, right? But you can also use the dictate thing on your Word document. There's Read Write, which is really good for people with dyslexia, right? Yeah, Word has a dictation function, right? Yeah, certain pens that also read text to you and record. You know, there's things like the Remarkable tablet, which is basically, so if you've got ADHD, you might live in a bit of chaos and have notes everywhere, right? But the Remarkable tablet keeps everything in one place. So there's lots of things that are available that people don't know are available. And they get told to go and apply for access to work to get the stuff that's available. But I will come on to that in a minute. Right? So, okay, so next group.
So we have Angie, Jan and Tiana.
We didn't nominate a spokesperson, but I'm quite happy to do so. I didn't take any notes either because we were too busy chatting. But we talked about our individual. Yes, her microphone's not working. We chatted by text about our individual workplaces. Mine, I believe, is actually fairly inclusive, and particularly in my team, I celebrate those people with neurodivergencies and actually take advantage of their special skills. I think I also have special skills, and I believe that I was appointed because, in lots of ways, because of my special skills. We talked about how working from home during lockdown kind of spoiled those of us with neurodivergencies. We loved being at home. It was so safe. Going back was hell. It felt like hell. But actually, for those of us, I mean, in the university, I'm not sure how it is for a lot of you in Livewell, because I'm sure you're based all over the place. But for those of us at the university, we do find that when we do work in the office, nearly always there is lots of space around us, and there are much quieter spaces to work from. And I am very lucky to have a very understanding manager who is a safe space and is very inclusive. Really has inclusivity through her veins. So but I understand that may just be a small pocket of the university. Interestingly, and this was for Penny, yesterday I attended a pilot training program for managers, which they tried out on the Faculty of Health, of which I am part of, and it was a leadership management training, but it included psychological safety. And so in 2 days, I'd never heard the term before, strangely enough, but in 2 days, obviously I've heard the same term. And I'm going to feed back to the team that they should include some element of talking about neurodiversity and how those people basically need to be considered, because psychological safety can be different for every candidate. So that was interesting. Angie had some very great definitions of inclusivity, and I'm sorry I didn't take it all down so I could repeat it all back to you. But
don't apologize, it's absolutely fine. It's nice to hear though that you have but it's someone's just mentioned that it's sad that we have to say we're lucky to have an understanding manager, because it should be just a given. It should be just a given.
Yeah.
You know.
But I think that is, and I think that something that was pointed out yesterday at the university was that since they dropped the ILM management training some years ago because of cost, that there's a huge gap in lots of managers that find themselves, even if they only line manage one person, they've missed out on a whole tranche of learning, of education in how to be a manager, how to be a decent manager. And so I think that gap is now beginning to kind of throw up issues for the university, because this generation of managers includes perhaps, just 30% of people that haven't had that opportunity. So so I think the university are trying to improve on management training, but I do think that they should include
I mean,
this
it takes
in there.
time. It does take time, because if you think about it, it was only in 1995 that the Disability Discrimination Act came in, and somebody could, but prior to that, they couldn't go upstairs in Marks and Spencer's to get their underwear if they were in a wheelchair. Right. So it's only 1995. So that's only 30 years ago. So change happens very, very slowly. And we all want it instantaneously, especially if you've got ADHD, you want it right now. You want pain to get done, you want that instant gratification. So it happens very, very slowly. But what we also have, which I also come across, there's a generation of people who don't believe that certain things exist. I had a client who I worked with who had dyslexia, and her manager turned around and said to her, "That's not a thing, is it?" Right? That's not a thing, right? So what all that does is takes the individual back to their school days when their dyslexia wasn't being supported, right? So if all of you that had a late diagnosis, I'm just assuming that, there's lots of you here, you all had a late, but you didn't have that late diagnosis, and you had everything that you needed in school, in your home, everywhere across the board, right? It was all there for you, okay? You wouldn't be sat here now having these conversations with me, you would be thriving, right? But what you have now is you have a trail and this backlog of all this stuff that piles in now when your emails come in, or you do your tasks, or you're procrastinating. Because procrastination, it really isn't about the task. The task isn't the issue. Your phone isn't the issue. So when you're scrolling on your phone, that's not the issue. It's what you're trying to get from your phone that's the issue. The dopamine hit, or relieve your stress, or the boredom. That's what you're trying to do. You're trying to make yourself feel better, right? When you're trying to be neurotypical in an environment, when you're neurodivergent, you're absolutely destroying yourself, and it's not going to work, is it? Because it's not worked yet, is it? So it's never going to work. So you start working with your neurodivergence, you start working with your stress, you start working with your body, you start working with your mind, and your whole world will I promise you, will change. Right? It changes to the degree that you notice when things are happening. It's like, for me, I've done a huge amount of EMDR therapy, a huge amount of EFT, a huge amount of work on myself, but I still have reactions. I still have triggers. And I've been doing this for 11 years. I still get flashbacks, because the stuff that's happened is so ingrained. Because when you, every single day, if you mask or you do something every single day in a certain way, you build huge amounts of neural pathways all around that particular behavior. It's in your body, it's not in your conscious mind. And the more stressed you are, and the more you try to do things, your executive function closes down. When you're in your survival brain, right, when you're here in your survival brain, there's no blood pumping to your prefrontal cortex. It's going to your legs or your arms, or it's making you shut down. So your thinking brain isn't, so you're not organized. You're not functioning at your optimum level. You're not doing things in the way that need to be done, because you're coming from a place of survival, not from a place of, I'm feeling good, I'm feeling calm, I'm feeling present. Does that make sense? Yeah. And I'm a huge advocate for this, because I see it because of what I've been through, and because I see it so much in my clients. The first thing I ever do with my clients is I work with them on nervous system health. And you remember the window of tolerance? They say to me, oh, they look at it and they go, oh my God. They say, most of the time I flip between hyperarousal and hypo. I'm hardly ever in my window of tolerance. And that's the way they've been most of their life. So, okay, if we got another group, was there one more group? I think.
Yeah, we've got our last group. That was Hannah, Tracy, and Samantha.
Hi, yeah, I didn't realise we were going to be feeding back. So we didn't really make any, or I'm not sure if the others did, but I certainly didn't make any notes, and I can't remember very much. But yeah, we just spoke about our working environment. Like I work from home, so I've got quite a good work environment. And then Samantha was saying that she's got a really good relationship with her manager. And what we did talk about was like long meetings. Long meetings can be difficult, like without an agenda, without knowing in advance when a break will be. And yeah, with my meetings at work, when it's just all really ad hoc, nothing's arranged beforehand, and it's just like, okay, what's everyone wants to talk about like on the spot, and then also when it comes to so what are your thoughts on that? It's kind of again on the spot, and for me being autistic, I would need to reflect and process it before I can come up with solutions, so I feel excluded in those situations.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, that's a very common thing that I hear, right? And that requires a reasonable adjustment within your workspace of meetings not being done ad hoc, you being given information beforehand. And normally a good strategy or a good adjustment, okay, so you're all legally entitled to have adjustments, right? But you shouldn't be begging or asking for them. They should be given freely, okay? So the adjustment that I would suggest in contexts like that is 15 minutes before the meeting, you have a conversation with somebody about what's going to be in the meeting. You ensure that has a reasonable adjustment that you're given agendas, so 24 hours or 48 hours before. And then 15 minutes afterwards, you also have a conversation with someone about what was in the meeting to make sure that you haven't missed anything. And it will also help you process the information. Sometimes you're not going to be able to do anything about the fact that it might be a meeting might get called ad hoc, right? So in those moments, that becomes your responsibility to say, okay, what do I need to do right now to look after myself to ensure that this thing doesn't then impact on me negatively or stressfully? And it might be that you sit down for 5 minutes, you do some breath work, you sit down, you might tap, you do something that regulates you. Okay, you might have a tangle in your pocket, or you might have something that you stim on, something that regulates you. But when it comes to other meetings, right, every meeting should really have an agenda, right? Every meeting should have an agenda anyway, right? So people know where they are. Our brains like structure, right? Okay. So, but if you start to feel threatened by the change, then what happens is your executive function will shut down. You're not going to know, you're not going to be able to take anything in. So if you have an adjustment whereby you have a 15 minutes before and 15 minutes after, so you have a conversation. Yeah. Does that make sense? Yeah, that's just something I give to my clients when they have the same problem. Yeah. Okay. So do I have any, was that the last group? Yes. Is that the last group? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Do we have any questions before we sort of do the last part? Do we have any questions for me? Fire them at me. I'll see if I can answer them. If I can. No questions. Okay. Right. So just the final part. Oh, did somebody just say they had a question? Yes, they do have a question. Thelma, fire at me.
Hi.
Hello.
Sorry, I just thought, will you be talking about reasonable adjustments and what we can help people with?
Yes. Okay. Yes. I'm going to give a sort of, I'm going to give something about that. Okay.
Perfect, thank you.
So, right. Okay. So
I've got a question from Hannah. Sorry, Faraday.
Hannah, yes, go for it. What was the question?
I was just wondering about you're saying about it's about getting in touch with the feelings. Well, what about people that experience alexithymia, which is quite common with neurodivergent people? Like, what strategies do you recommend with getting in touch with feelings when the people that struggle with knowing what their feelings
are? Okay, so their interoception is to get in touch with their feelings, right? I have got some strategies in my toolbox, right? So basically it's doing things that allow you to feel certain things. So it might be that what you do is you touch something that like hot or cold, you sit and you start to, okay, so I can feel a sensation in my body. What is this sensation? Use a feelings wheel. So what you do is you're strengthening your interoception, right? Lots of people who are neurodivergent have very poor interoception because they don't want to feel their feelings because their feelings are threatening, right? Your feelings are not threatening. Did you know? Okay, I'm just going to stop the share because I'm going to explain this to you, right? Your emotions last for 90 seconds, okay? They rise and they fall, right? Biologically, they rise, they fall, they last 90 seconds. But the story that gets attached to that emotion makes that emotion last for even longer. And then before you know it, you're pissed off and you're angry for 4 days about an email that was sent to you or something that somebody said to you, right? But your emotions last 90 seconds. So when you start to recognize, okay, I'm starting to feel something different in my body here, right? And the only way you do that, yoga nidra is really good as well, Hannah. There's something called yoga nidra, right? So if you'll have my email at the end, please email me, Hannah, please email me, and I'll send you the thing that I have of interoception exercises. I've got a range of different ones that you can use to start to increase that. Yeah, because it is literally just getting in touch with your feelings, but with in different ways. Okay, so if you just email me, my email's at the end. So if you just email me, I'll send it to you. All right.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay, no worries. Okay, let me just write that down, otherwise I might forget. That's why I tell people to email me, because I'll forget. Right. Okay, so email. Okay, that's fine. All right, so your interoception is really important. Many people have poor interoception, and that's why people will freeze or they don't know what to do, because they don't know, like, it's like, and also, you know, when you're stressed and traumatized, you freeze. So your manager is trying to tell you something, give you feedback, right? And it's like, but you're freezing because it's criticism, and you're going, oh my God, this is really, really bad, because you've been criticized all the time that you're at school because of your ADHD, because you were a naughty kid, right? So you respond in that way, you know? So when giving feedback, if you're a manager giving feedback, don't just give feedback on what they're doing wrong. Give feedback on what they're doing right. Many people who are neurodivergent don't know if they're doing things right, because they spend most of their life thinking they're doing stuff wrong. Okay. When we're at school, when we're kids, we naturally compare ourselves to whoever is it sat next to us, right? And if you've got someone who's dyslexic, who's not being able to read and write in the same way as their peers, right? They don't turn around and go, oh, right, okay, yeah, I've got dyslexia, but nobody knows. That's what's wrong with me. My teacher doesn't know. She's not aware of this. And oh, bless her, she's not really doing anything to help me, but it's all right. You don't say that. You go, I can't do this. I must be stupid. There must be something wrong with me. That's what you do, right? So then you carry that belief into your workspace, right? And then it gets triggered when you get an email or you get feedback. Does that make sense? Yeah, that's kind of how life works, unfortunately. It's kind of how our brain works. We've got a brilliant brain and body, but also it can actually work against us too. So, okay, let's finish up then, because obviously we've got 15 minutes, right? Okay, so small changes create the biggest impact, okay? So communication, environments, neurodivergent changes, right? The software is probably the most expensive thing, okay? But it doesn't have to be that expensive, because obviously you can get lots and lots of licenses and stuff. But the software is generally, because you don't necessarily need chairs or ramps or lifts, okay? All right. So like we said, creating psychological safety is the biggest thing. But this isn't just about the environment doing it for you. It's also about you doing it for yourself. Create psychological safety for yourself. Think Maslow's hierarchy of needs. If you don't feel safe, how are you going to feel like you belong, or that you feel confident in your job or what you do? You know, you're not going to go after that promotion if you don't feel that you're good enough, or you don't believe that you're good enough. Why would you? Because you're not going to get it, because you've convinced yourself. The little voice in your head has convinced yourself. All right. Okay. Reasonable adjustments start at recruitment, not just going in. Okay. This is my bugbear. Many application processes do not suit the needs of neurodivergent people. The forms online, the software doesn't work with them. They're requesting things. They don't give them alternatives. You know, somebody who's dyslexic, why can't they give you a video recording or an audio application? It starts at recruitment. The language that's used as well. Okay, the language that's used. Right. So that's a really key factor. So if there's any managers here, HR people, look at your recruitment processes. Do you give them the questions beforehand, the interview questions beforehand, or do they have to ask for them, right? Do you make it easy for people to disclose? All of these things, right? What's going on? People don't disclose because they just don't disclose because there's a reason, and it's because it's not easy for them to disclose, or they're afraid, and if you take into fact that most people who are neurodivergent are coming into your workspace with a whole heap of stress and trauma, and the way that you're operating might not be suitable to their needs. But also you might have non-neurodivergent people who've got a whole heap of trauma as well. Okay, so normalize adjustments, right? Sorry, that's my fire alarm going off in my block. It's a test, don't worry, it's not going off. Okay, so just put me off ever so slightly, because if there is a fire, I'm supposed to stay in my thing because apparently it's fireproof, but I've got a balcony so I can climb out, right? So, but it's not on fire. Okay, right. So I come across, this is such a bugbear of mine, I come across many people who are literally given the link to the Access to Work application and told, that's your adjustment. Go and apply for it. No, it's not. Access to Work support is an adjunct too. The moment that that individual ticks a box on the application form to say that they have some kind of disability is the moment that the adjustments have to trigger, right? And it's not up to the individual to go up and go, oh, by the way, I've got something wrong with me. I've got this is going on and I've got this and I need this help. You are supposed to approach them and say, I can see that you've ticked the box. What can we do to help? Right? Just giving somebody the link and then okay, we all know how long's the waiting list? 12 months. Right? We have a 12-month waiting list on Access to Work. So for 12 months, they are expected to go without support, without reasonable adjustments. That's not inclusivity, and that's not reasonable adjustments. It's an adjunct to. It's an added thing. It's a way to get support with funding. Okay. All right. So it's not, as soon as that person they hit your place, right? The best thing to do is to have the software already on the computers, already have the quiet spaces, already have a sensory room, already have all of those things there. So when they walk in, they feel a sense of safety and they feel a sense of belonging. And then it only pays you well because you will have more productive staff, guarantee it. Okay. So flexible structures, okay? I'm going to rush through this one because I really need you to go off for 3 minutes and do this particular task, right? Okay, so flexible hours, remote options, all of that we talked about. No multitasking, right? No multitasking, right? This is going to be a quick thing that you're going to do with each other because I need to prove something to you, right? Okay, so in pairs, Shawnee's going to send you off into pairs, right? And what you'll need to do is you need a piece of paper, right? And you're going to time each other. So hopefully you've all got your phones there and you're going to time each other. The first time round, so you could do it with just one person, all right, because it's going to take a couple of minutes, right? And the other person has to time them. So you're going to draw 2 lines across the paper, right? Okay, so I'm just going to stop the share so you can see, right? You're going to draw 2 lines across the paper, right? So one person's going to time you and the other person is going to do this. On the first line, you're going to write, I am a great multitasker on the first line, okay? And then on the second line, you're going to do 1 to 20. You'll just write out 1 to 20. And you're going to time how long it takes you, right? So the first line, I am a great multitasker. The second line, the number's 1 to 20, right? Okay. And this is going to be in pairs. And then the next time, the second time around, this is what you're going to do. So you're going to go I, 1, A, 2, M, 3, and you're going to alternate. Does that make sense? Please put your hand up if, yeah, does that make sense? So what you're going to do is you're going to go I, 1, A, 2, M, 3, A, 4, G, 5, R, 6, yeah? That's how you're going to do it. So the first time, yeah? So just do one round with one person. So one person timing and the other person doing it. All right? Okay? I'll see you in a minute.
So that's
Sorry, I think we didn't complete it because we couldn't understand properly.
Okay, right. Okay, who did it? Who struggled with it? Who struggled with the multitasking?
So my colleague did it, but I haven't done it.
How do we know?
Okay. Okay. Yeah, so it's really easy. That's what, when you multitask, okay, this is when you have your emails pinging in and you respond to your email straight away and you move away from your thing, you are reducing your productivity really badly, right? Because we don't multitask, we switch, your brain switches between tasks. And what it has to do is it has to actually get its function back to then switch back to the task. So when you say, I can multitask, that's actually a lie. It's a misconception. You can't multitask. And when you're expected to multitask in your job, they are actually making you less productive. And what they're doing is they're creating a reduce in productivity by expecting you to multitask. Our brain is only designed to focus its attention solely 100% on one thing at any one time. And if you can train yourself to do that, you will find your productivity will be immense. And please, if you are HR or managers and you're doing job applications, please take multitasking off any job application or job spec, because it is not a thing. Yeah, it's not a thing. Okay. So it's one of my pet peeves. And when it's even harder for neurodivergent people. I've had people that it's literally taken them 3 times as long to do the second one, 3 times as long to do switching between. And they're doing that constantly in their job, switching between. Yeah. All right. It doesn't help your executive function. Okay. So obviously we've only got a few minutes left. So I'm just going to whiz through the slides. Right. Okay. So obviously communication is a key factor, and we've talked about that. Right. Okay. But again, please, if you want some more information, just email me, or there's my stuff on social media. Okay. You build a culture of curiosity and focus on strengths. All right. Don't assume. Right. And remember that productivity does not increase with prolonged pressure or stress, contrary to popular belief and what happens in the way that our world works. Right. It does not increase with multitasking or avoiding or ignoring the impact of the environment. Right. So productivity increases when people feel emotionally and psychologically safe, welcomed, respected, included, and not divided. Okay. When they feel part of it. Because even when we have our inclusivity and our adjustments, individuals still feel that they're getting some kind of special treatment. They don't feel like they belong. So if your environment is already set up for everybody, when they walk in, it doesn't matter, because none of us think in the same way. We all think differently, you know, but for neurodivergent people, it's even harder. It's even tougher. None of us are the same. We're all different, aren't we? Every single human being we come across is different. We're all unique, but we're all expected to be and work in a particular way. And for some people, they can all work in one way. Academia, it's just really not set up for people who are neurodivergent. The questions, the essays, the structure of it. Somebody who's dyslexic, they're not going to have a linear thought form. They're going to want to splurge it out, right? And then structure it afterwards. Yeah. And they're forcing themselves to work in this kind of linear way when actually don't. Work with your neurodivergence. Work with it. Okay, that's it. Questions, we've got time for, maybe if anybody wants to ask me any questions, they can. We've got a few minutes, maybe, if people have to leave. If anybody's got any questions, can throw me a question. I've got a couple of minutes. Yes, Louise.
Hi, I did mean to press the hand thing then. I kept pressing it earlier by accident.
Okay.
So, no, I mean, I did mean to that time.
Okay.
So I just wanted to mention, because we touched on it in our group chat earlier, and just that there might be a lack of awareness and training maybe within management. But what I wanted to just mention was that within the City Council, I know that there's a neurodiversity staff network, and some members have been creating and working with other staff to create a neurodiversity toolkit. Yeah. And so I don't know if that's something that other organisations could consider as well. I don't know when that's coming into place, or I think it's just going to be a resource for staff and managers to access, to give them this information, to sort of let them know the sort of things that they can do to help and things like that. So yeah, I just wanted to mention that, really, just because it sounds like it would be very useful.
Yeah, that's really good.
Thank you.
Really good. Anybody else got any questions? Fire them at me. I'll answer them if I can. If I have a toolkit too, yeah. So where can we have more info?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm in the access to workplace at the moment. I'm contacting an organisation yourself for the work. Right. Okay. Did someone just put their hand up? I have to flick between my screens. Has anybody got any questions?
Down again.
Yeah. Anybody got any questions? No. You mean you haven't got any questions after all of that? Really? Okay, no questions then. If you haven't got any questions, or is there anything else you want some information on? I can give you.
Got a question in the chat saying, do you have any further tips, ideas for normalising adjustments for those working in HR?
Okay, I did message Samantha, and I did say email me and I will send you some things, right? But yes, it's all about, you need to look at your criteria, so your essential and your desirable criteria, and the language, right, that's used in those, right? And in any kind of job applications, Normalizing adjustments is to have computer software already on the computers, right? So it's already there when they walk in. It's about knowing that the individual that you have will be in the post email. Yes. So it's about knowing when you get people coming in, it's the expectation. So there is actually a legal thing where you're actually supposed to be, it's anticipatory. You have an anticipatory duty for when people come in, but most people go in and then have to ask for what they require. So you might have like interviews, right? One of the things with interviews is individuals who are neurodivergent might need a longer interview time, right? So if they have a slower processing speed, if they're given half an hour or 3/4 of an hour in the same way that anybody else is, they're not going to be able to answer all your questions. So, and also sometimes when you have an interview panel and there's 3 people, that might be too overwhelming for them. So it's not just about the interview questions, it's also about the environment when they walk in and they have the interview. Does that make sense? Samantha, is that okay? Or do you want some more? If you do want some more, I can email you some. Yeah, okay. All right, anybody else? Okay, yeah, anybody else? No? Any more questions? You don't have any questions?
Just maybe got one.
Thelma, yes.
Yeah, hi. I was just thinking, does it come under guaranteed interviews, like the Disability Act?
Yeah, some places do that. Some places do, like they guarantee if you have a disability, they guarantee you an interview, right? And that is, for some people, that might not be, they want to go on merit, not on disability. Okay, so you've got to think about that as well, because what you're then doing is you're saying just because you have a disability, you can get an interview, but it's also, you've got to think about merit too, right? Okay, so, but there is that, and some places have that in place and some places don't. There's also a thing about being able to give feedback to people who are neurodivergent. So if they have an interview, there's I've worked with lots of people who don't get feedback on their application, and they want feedback. So provide feedback to them, right? Especially if they're neurodivergent, right? Because some people can just brush stuff off and they just don't care. Like, oh, well, I didn't get the job. It doesn't matter. But for somebody who's neurodivergent, what goes through their head is, I didn't get the job because I'm neurodivergent. I didn't get the job because I did this wrong. I didn't get the job because I did that. I didn't get the job because of this, right? So they roll off this whole thing. And I see it because I coach people every single day. And I see the ramifications of the environment and application processes of report writing, right? When they have to write reports, the templates, they're like, I can't deal with the template. I can't do it because my brain is all over the place. Don't follow a linear format, right? If you're going out and you're asking clients questions, or you're going out and you're having to write reports, as long as the end result is exactly what's required, how you get there doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter, you know, as long as the end result is exactly the same, you know, it doesn't really matter. Some things obviously need a linear format, like baking a cake, because otherwise it sags in the middle, right? But some things they don't, you know, especially for dyslexia. You know, it's like they'll say, yeah, but Mark, I want to write that bit first. I said, well, why don't you write that bit? And they go, oh, okay, I can. Yes, of course you can. With my dyslexic students, right? I had this one dyslexic student who her reading and writing was very poor. And she even went to a dyslexia school, and it's not. And also, just because people get the software, it doesn't fix them. All right. Just because they have the software and the adjustments doesn't mean that suddenly it's just gone. All right. It's not just gone. No. And I get a lot of feedback about that. Right. And she used to rock up to see me, and she would say, I've been trying to write this essay and write my intro, and I can't do it. And I said to her, don't try to do it in a linear format. I said, just write what you need to write. And I said, and we can structure it afterwards. Right. And she walked away with a first on her degree. You know, so when you work with your neurodivergence, you work and your environment works with your neurodivergence, you then function better. If your home is like equipped as well for you and your mind and your body and your soul, then it's going to be great, isn't it? Yeah. Does that all make sense?
Thank you, Faraday. That's a very good note
to
end on.
Thank you.